Welcome to Vets to PM's Military Transition Academy podcast, the show where we discuss how to succeed in transitioning from the military service to the civilian workforce. This show and the academy it represents helps veterans transition into meaningful, lucrative post-service careers. Your primary host is Eric Doc Wright, PhD, certified manager, military veteran, serial founder, best-selling business author, philosopher, linguist, and coach. Your other host is Jeremy Burdick, project management professional, scrum master, product owner, and retired Air Force chief, and the current COO of Vets to PM and the Professional Development Unit University, where we will interview veterans successful in corporate America and business to bring you nuggets of wisdom every episode to make you more successful. Next, let's introduce today's guest. Our special guest today is Sam Peterson, and former Army EOD technician turned mental health professional. Since nearly taking his own life and losing several friends to suicide, Sam dedicated his life to treating veterans with post-traumatic stress disorder, traumatic brain injuries, depression, and anxiety. And Sam is an entrepreneur and has opened up several mental health programs for vets in need and continues to push the envelope on what it means to treat mental health conditions more effectively. Super amazing guy. We've had him on the show once before. If you want to go back and watch that episode, I think this one really just kind of is an icing and the cherry on top, but extremely interesting. I can't wait to hear your thoughts. Let's get started. All right, Sam, glutton for punishment, came back for round two. I'm so excited that you joined us again. But for any of the listeners that didn't hear the first show, the first episode that you came on and rocked it, and showed us the Jeremy Renner side of things. Let's get after it. Just tell me what you've been doing, what you were doing, and then we'll talk about the new movements.
Yeah. So, Sam Peterson, I'm a former Army bomb technician turned mental health professional, and have really dedicated my career to creating more effective treatment protocols for veterans with post-traumatic stress disorder, traumatic brain injuries, anxiety, depression. I struggled with all this stuff myself, nearly took my own life, and, have lost several friends to suicide. And instead of, waiting for the system to create a solution, just started, standing up these programs, standing up these clinics. And my goal with these has really been to drive the standard of care for TBI, PTSD, anxiety, depression in a new direction. So, on the last episode, we talked about, my clinic in Denver, Mind Spa, that offers a combination of hyperbaric oxygen therapy, ketamine infusion therapy, and transcranial magnetic stimulation to help vets with those maladies. It's a really great protocol that, brings together the best parts of regenerative and functional medicine to create superior outcomes faster. And, with this new program, not only have we taken things to the next level to really optimize the human brain, but we've created a program that is funded through VA community care. So we've increased access by several orders of magnitude to these life-changing protocols and brought them to, anybody who is in the Tri-West side of the VA. So we're only dealing with the West Coast, but we've taken that access up a huge notch.
Nice. Yeah. And for anybody not aware, like once you separate, once you get ratings by the VA and you want to see civilian care outside of the VA facilities, Tri-West is one of the insurance companies that does work with private care. So too cool. Episode 54, I think we recorded it. It posted somewhere in May 23rd-ish. So if you're searching for episodes, I definitely recommend hitting pause, go listen to that one and come back, because it was one of my favorite episodes. I just think from a being real perspective, from the exit and the trauma every vet, I think, is going to have. Just when you talk about your entity changing, like who you are, it's kind of a big deal, right? So I think we all go through it at different stages, different magnitudes, like you said, and not everybody has the harsh side of it, but you're going to have some effect of it. And I think there's still a lot of room for guys like Sam to really play in everybody's transition. So talk to me about what's going new. What are we talking about?
Yeah, so it wasn't too long after we did that podcast that I got a phone call from a doctor friend of mine. He said, "Hey, look, I know you've got your clinic, but I've got an opportunity for you. The company I work for, Altior Healthcare, has received a contract from the VA up in Idaho, and they want to open up a program for vets, and they're interested in trying to make that the best program in the US. And, the CEO is interested in talking to you." So I sat down with Ken, um, and, just threw him a 10-page proposal. I was like, "Look, here's how you make the best program in the country. Here's the treatment protocol. You're really taking all those lessons learned from outpatient and putting them into an even more comprehensive treatment protocol that can leverage, the best parts of this and really optimize the human to the biggest extent possible." And, he liked it, and asked me to come on board, and I agreed. Put the clinic under management. That's been great. It's going well. So MindSpa is still doing great things in Denver, but day to day, working with the VA, working with vets, and getting the word out about this new program has been my thing.
Wow, too cool. So did you ended up moving up into Idaho then?
No, so I still live in Denver, but I'm actually like going to Spokane tomorrow. I'm up there all the time.
Okay.
So
Okay.
like we got our first vets in the program, and I lived at the house for 2 weeks just to make sure everything was smooth, and we've already got amazing results.
Wow, that's too cool. And the program, is it the Patriot PowerUp?
Yep, the program's called Patriot PowerUp, patriotpowerup.com. If you're interested. Yeah, man, let's jump in.
Yeah. So talk to me. Yeah. I mean, you talk about like America's best program and possibly, just in general mental health care across the, let's just say the globe, right? You're
Yeah.
building a premier program. And what does that consist of? I mean, you don't have to give me every detail, but let's just talk just some metabytes, just so people kind of know when they're walking through the door what to expect.
All right. Well, so the first thing is starting off with a comprehensive picture of the total health of the individual. So using pharmacogenetic testing, looking at, okay, you're on 17 different drugs. All right, that's a little startling. Now, which one of those drugs is actually working well with your genetics? We can parse that out using things like gene site testing. Okay, cool. Like things like certain selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, try saying that 3 times fast, don't work for your physiology. Boom, we can knock that off the board, like taper you off that med. And again, this, I want to emphasize, this is all done under the supervision of a licensed psychiatrist. So we're not doing anything crazy here. This is all still within that medical model. So we've got the pharmacogenetic testing. We've got full blood panels. Hey, it doesn't matter how well your brain is working. If your hormones are jacked up, you're jacked up. You know, so identifying that early. All right, is your testosterone low? Are other biomarkers below the indicated levels for optimal performance? All right, let's address that. And we've got some nonprofit partners that we're starting to build relationships with to fund that long term. So when vets come out of the program, not only are they getting optimized, but they're getting it paid for long term. I can't announce those partnerships yet because they're still in the works, but we're doing that testing right now and hooking vets up with local resources for hormone replacement therapy if it's warranted. And then we have neuropsych testing, so looking at things like your reaction time, your functional memory, your functional attention. From those metrics, think like the ANAM that we used to take in the Army, in the Marine Corps before deploying. It's about a 90-minute test, and we can get all these metrics for how your brain and your reaction time is actually manifesting itself. And we can see pretty clearly if there are deficiencies related to markers for depression, anxiety, PTSD, TBI. And then, the last piece is a quantitative EEG. How much voltage is the system putting off, and in what waveforms? So if we see things like, significant deficit in delta waves, I can see your insomnia. It's right there. I can see your TBI, like we get a heat map of the brain from the EEG. So if there's like, let's say damage to the temporal lobe, boom, we're seeing a dark spot on that EEG where this part of your brain that's inflamed is not putting off the electricity that it normally would because it's inflamed. It's not able to process and create energy and create those waveforms. So with all these pieces, and we're also integrating wearable trackers. That's something that's coming here in the next couple of weeks, hopefully. So we can see in real time, like, how's everybody sleeping? What are your biorhythms actually look like in comparison to your brain health? And then, we're delivering the qualitative aspect through NeuroFlow. So you got an app on your phone, you're checking in with this thing, you're, daily doing work on it. And it's also a way for us to connect with our vets after they get out of the program. So part of that continuum of care, it's really, really important to stay connected. So with those pieces, those 6 core pieces, we're getting this comprehensive health picture. And that's really, really important for a number of reasons. One, what the hell is actually going on? And that's a question that a lot of vets ask. And a piece that I didn't mention, I'm hoping that we can announce this partnership in the next couple of weeks, but we got some big stuff coming with a big veteran military clothing brand. And we're going to be looking at heavy metal poisoning. So looking at toxic levels in the brain. We've all dealt with the burn pits, the lead. Some of us worked on, nukes. Guess what? Uranium's not going anywhere unless you do something about it. So bringing that in on top of that, like, boom, all the possible things that could be going on, we have eyes on. And once we have eyes on, we can do something about it. We can target those individual things. And so then, we're using, once we have that picture, we're using a combination of, intensive therapy. So you're constantly engaging with that therapy, group sessions, to help rewire the brain and provide that framework as you heal. And on top of that, we're doing hyperbaric oxygen therapy every day. We're doing ketamine infusion therapy. We're doing nutritional therapy. So like everybody's on athletic greens, on a number of different supplements that are meant to optimize it. And, you never know how much energy you're missing out on until you start taking like one of these green supplements and actually get vitamin enriched. But it's also a huge part of healing your brain. None of the hyperbaric studies to date have looked at biomarkers for nutrition as a gauge for who's getting better and who's not. We kind of see with the research in hyperbaric that like about half your patient population, will get better or won't. Well, what we've seen on the clinical side is very, very dependent on the health of the individual, like their habits, especially their nutrition, and how they're going about their day. So if we can take that nutrition piece and just optimize the hell out of it, the healing process we've seen tends to go a lot faster.
Wow. I love how like quantitative it is, but then you add the qualitative part to it as well. So, I mean, ultimately, I think that's the piece that most clinicians are missing, at least, is you don't know where the baseline, you don't even know where we're starting, because we don't know the problem until we start the treatment. Oh, did the treatment work? No. Okay, let's back that up, try something different. And it's such a wasteful way to go about it, but it's extremely, I guess, refreshing to see the approach of let's test and see what the heck's going on before we start something. That way we can like, let's drive down the right road instead of just, taking a shot in the dark, pin the tail in the
Wow. Yeah. And I mean, then we've got, the ketamine, we covered it on the last podcast. I'll hit it real quick. Ketamine is going to downregulate inflammatory cytokine production in the brain. That means you're taking inflammation and you're dialing it back. So what does that mean functionally? It means someone comes in with a TBI, they've had post-concussive migraines, they're having brain fog, they're having emotional regulation issues. Once you take that inflammation down, all of a sudden those symptoms start to rapidly, and we're talking within 1 to 2 treatments, so a week, can rapidly get relief. And now that's a bridging therapy. That's the start. We're creating a foundation. Most of us have been through programs. They're like, all right, cool. Like, let's sit in a drum circle and sing Kumbaya. That'll help my TBI. But this is a way to like, all right, cool. These guys know what they're talking about. This actually, I feel better for the first time in, years. We've created that foundation. We've got that inflammation downregulated. Now we've got the hyperbaric oxygen therapy. We're starting to repair all these damages. So we do this whole thing in 4 phases. So like the first phase we talked about is the reveal phase. We're revealing what's going on in the brain and the body. Second phase that we're on right now is our repair phase. So, using the hyperbaric, using the ketamine, using the nutritional therapy, and really upregulating the body's ability to heal itself. For those who aren't familiar with like hyperbaric oxygen therapy, you're in a tube, the tube gets pressurized, you're breathing in concentrated oxygen, that hyperoxygenates your blood plasma and allows oxygen to reach areas of your brain that have been cut off due to inflammation. Because the vessels in your brain, very, very small amount of inflammation, just shuts the door. Cells on the other side get starved for oxygen. This whole inflammatory cascade starts. That's how you start to see your symptoms worsen, is because of that inflammatory process. So hyperbaric brings oxygen back into the fold and starts to deliver it to cells that have basically been choked for sometimes years.
Wow, that is crazy. Are you seeing when you do the ketamine and then the oxygen, are you seeing the ECG light back up in areas that were dark?
Yeah, so you typically see the brain's output voltage go up pretty significantly post-treatment. So it's really been cool to see. And then, that once we've established that phase, we immediately begin the rewire phase. So that's targeted med management, and that's if it's warranted. Meds don't work for everybody, but they do work for some. And that's an important distinction that a lot of people don't want to hear, is like, hey, Lynn, the right amount of bupropion could be a good idea if you're suffering from depression, but it's not for everybody. And that's why we're using, the pharmacogenetic testing just to make sure. So we've got in this rewire phase, we're doing the med management, as needed. We're doing the integrative psychotherapy. We're doing, neurofeedback, and we're doing transcranial magnetic stimulation. So like top down, bottom up. We're teaching the brain to be in the right brainwave states. We're also influencing those neurons and upregulating these neural networks in the prefrontal cortex, and what that feels like. And I'm saying this from a place of like, I've done all this shit. So, I may not be a doctor, but I am talking about this from the patient's perspective, and as someone who, has just been through it, seen it 100 times. So got to establish that. So with transcranial magnetic stimulation, you're upregulating these neural networks. And what typically happens when we're talking about PTSD, we're talking about depression, we're talking about anxiety, is you've got an overactive hindbrain. So like PTSD, overactive amygdala, fight, flight, or freeze is drastically, outmaneuvering the prefrontal cortex from an electrical standpoint. With this treatment, you increase the prefrontal cortex's ability to tell the rest of your brain to shut the hell up. So what that feels like is it's like having a dimmer switch. So normally you'd get sucked into the hole, whether it's your panic hole, your depression hole, or your rage hole. And this like gives you the ability to see the hole coming and sidestep it.
Oh, wow.
Like you're still going to feel the feelings, but you're not going to get, pulled in and stuck.
Right. It's no longer quicksand. It's just a puddle, right? I mean, it's like,
yeah. I mean, you can still get yourself into a panic attack. Don't get me wrong. But you've got a lot more control.
Yeah, yeah.
A lot.
How does that feel, the transcranial magnetic stuff? I mean,
So how does it feel? Yeah, so it's a device that's put on the head, after they do a mapping. We're targeting the left dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, and it's kind of like a cosmic woodpecker tapping on your head. There's a little discomfort, but you get used to it. Maybe a little bit of facial twitching. The most you're really going to get is a mild headache that you can treat with ibuprofen. And once you go through the treatment for long enough, that typically abates and you stop getting them. And when I say long enough, I'm talking like a week or two.
Wow. Yeah, you desensitize really quick to it.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, you get used to it. The first thing you're like, whoa, little eye twitch.
Yeah.
And by treatment number 7 or 8, you're game facing the whole thing.
Wow. That's too cool. I love how you're downgrading the amygdala, which is like trying to take over your body. And it's the instantaneous, for lack of a better word, it's your reactions. It's like, hey, it overrides logic, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where your temporal lobe is like, hey, that's logic. Hey, I should not feel this way because there is not a bus coming right now. I don't need to be in fight or flight mode.
Yeah. There's no bears. There's
Right.
no bears trying to eat me right now. And it's not so much that we're down regulating the amygdala. We're just think about, like, you've got a misbalanced scale here. You've got the amygdala on one side that's kind of like groaning gorge, it's taking up a lot of nutrients, a lot of blood, and you've got your prefrontal cortex that's not being used as much. Our all of our physiology is wired from an evolutionary standpoint to favor like the path of least resistance, to optimize for what we're going through. And so when you have this like engorged amygdala and a weak prefrontal cortex, of course, like the balance of power is right here. So what we're doing is increasing the veracity of these neural networks. So this scale gets balanced. And over time, we start to see this guy shrink up a little bit as it's not being used. And that's your long-term outcome.
Right. Wow. So feed the dog that you want to take over, essentially.
Yeah, first you got to get the right dog in the yard.
Yeah. Right. Wow. Yeah.
And
Dr. Kahneman's got the think fast, think slow. I don't know if you've read that, but it
thinking
sounds,
fast and slow.
yeah, that's like the exact, terminology or example that he kind of uses. It's like, hey, listen, everybody just, if you're lazy, right, you're just using the lizard brain of, part that's, it doesn't want to fire up. The big thinker in your body is on a beanbag eating Cheetos and doesn't want to try to get out of the beanbag to try to do something.
It's so true. And it really becomes a wiring problem. And then an energy allocation problem. And what the really cool thing is, that I want to speak to like the longevity of this, because everyone's like, all right, big whoop, you can make people feel better so our program's 45 days. So all right, cool, you can make someone feel better for 45 days, but what happens when I go home?
Mm-hmm.
I get into the same argument with my wife that I've been in 1,000 times because the dishes weren't done or whatever the hell it is. The really cool thing about things like hyperbaric, things like deep transcranial magnetic stimulation is it's got a long tail to it. So in double-blind, sham-controlled studies on TMS, first of all, 74% response rate for depression. Like, that's huge. That's like, we're really up in the top percentile for efficacy there. And so they did this study. I can't remember. I want to say it was 300 or 400 people. So don't beat me to death on that. So they did 30 treatments of TMS, and 74 people responded. And when they went back 2 years later and looked at that responder population, assessed them again for depression, 50% of the people that responded no longer qualified for the depression diagnosis. That's pretty
Wow.
damn good.
Yeah.
And those, and that's using just TMS. That's it. Like
Wow.
none of their nutrition wasn't optimized. They're not using neurofeedback or hyperbaric. So what we've been seeing so far is really really promising for long-term potentiation.
That's too cool. To the pharmacology stuff, not to put you on the spot, but like, what's the efficacy rate on those? Like, when we come back a couple of years later, people are still on drugs. I mean, I would imagine they still have to. It becomes like a lifelong problem.
Yeah, so STAR-D study, 30 the antidepressants best day, your first dose of antidepressants is a 33% chance of working. And the efficacy rate for each subsequent med trial goes down. It's funny because if you read the study, you can tell it was written by someone in big pharma because they use an additive like, well, if you just keep doing these med trials, eventually something will work. I'm like, yeah, but you're talking about an efficacy rate that goes from 33% to 24% to 16% to 6%.
Wow.
And nobody wants to talk about that, like in those time frames that like you're talking 10 to 12 weeks, and
Wow.
that person who's not responding is suffering that whole time. So by the time they get to 6 months, they're like, yeah, man, that 45 starting to look pretty tasty.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Those days are not. They're not good days, right? You're not feeling good because the drugs aren't working, and then you feel like you can't stop them, and you begin. I would imagine, based on your testing, you would know too, is you become to be like used to them, like you become resistant, I would think, to the benefits of the drugs as well.
Well, from my readings, there's not a lot of long-term studies on the uses of SSRIs for treating depression. You're like, 2, 3 years out, everything that I've read points to the fact that there's a serious diminishing return, and that these things are not meant for long-term use. I mean, also, John Kelly, who's the CEO of Sarescan, said this quote. It has resonated with me. It was just about the first week that I was in mental health, and like, the brain is like the most advanced organ that we know about in the entire universe. It's its own pharmaceutical company. It adapts to changes. It makes its own drugs. Trying to treat this very complex organism with a single approach is dumb. And I have to agree with the man.
Oh man,
Like,
that's profound. Just in the sense, and what I think, what kind of, it always excites me when I talk to you, so I appreciate you coming on the show, but the the approach of bringing oxygen and nutrients back to an organ seems like a no-brainer, pun intended.
see what you
But
did there.
right, it's just one of those things. It's like, of course it needs oxygen. It can heal itself if you make it work again the way it's meant to work. I love the approach that you guys are taking over there.
Oh, thanks, man. It really is. Like, I don't know if you're a big Joe Dispenza guy.
No, I mean, not because I'm not. I'm just ignorant.
Okay. His story, he is a little more on the woo woo side, but the man's story is like, so basically, he's a former chiropractor. He is in a bike race in California, gets hit by this old lady in a Bronco going like 50 on his bike, hits him twice actually. First time, then she fails to hit the brakes fast enough and runs him over, shatters his spine. Right. So he's in traction in bed, and the doctors tell him, hey man, here's what you got to do. You're going to get, you're going to get Harrington rods So rods put on either side of your spine and bolted into your skeleton. Or you cannot do what we say. And if you try to stand up, your entire spinal column will collapse. You'll be a quadriplegic for the rest of your life. So he's laying in bed and he's like, shit, what am I going to do? He had a very, he had a solid meditative practice. And so he's a chiropractor, so he understands anatomy. So those are, two things that he had going in his favor. And he went on a very, a very nutrient dense diet specifically to help regrow his spine. And he goes into this meditative practice in it for, an hour and a half a day, rebuilding his spine, like in his head. He's laying there and, he says it's one of the hardest things to do in his life. And anytime he like got off focus, he would start again. Like, I got nothing better to do. I know that there's this innate intelligence, like this system has evolved over, millions and millions and millions of years. So there's something that I can't perceive that's doing a ton of work. And we know this already, like our cellular biology is so incredibly, diverse and it operates without us having to think about it. So he's doing this meditative practice. It's like, I think I want to say within like 6 weeks, he was in the pool, like swimming around, doing PT in the pool. And then it was something like either 12 or 18 weeks, he took his first steps, like incredible. And now the guy's walking around, he's super healthy. And like his story is well documented. He's shared his medical records, and not to say that's ever an approach that I would tell somebody to take, but I think the story goes a long way to illustrating the fact that if you do the right things and you feed the system the right things, you really can change the brain, and you really can get it to heal in a way that it hasn't done before.
Wow, that really speaks to the power of the mind, right? I mean, I love it. Great story. I think it's really cool, and I agree 100% with both points. Is the nutrition? You've got to feed your body. It's an overall organism as well, just like anything else. You feed a car bad gas, it doesn't run right, right? It's the same thing. And then the maintenance side of things, you don't change the oil, it breaks down. But then you take it to the other side is the mind, right? I think you break down the word of meditation, and I'd read an article this morning that was talking about mutter. Like the root is like to mutter to yourself.
Oh, yeah.
I had no idea. And then like the Hebrew word is like Haggah, and they talk about Haggah on the Bible. Like they legitimately mutter the Bible to themselves and they meditate on it. And you're meant to do that. Like your mind will slowly become what you tell yourself, so. And I'm sure you've seen that, like, oh man, I'm broken. Golly, stop saying that. You trust yourself, right? And you're telling your mind that you're broken. But okay, like before we go down that road.
Well, so you brought up habits, man. And that's another thing that the Patriot PowerUp does, I think, really well. You're literally in the gym every single day. We're adjacent to a really nice, so the program's in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. If you've ever been there, super pretty place. But we're right down the road from a really nice facility, that's got a track, a pool, sauna, steam room. It honestly, the gym inside looks a lot like Al Assad's gym in Kuwait, but with like a turf area. So you're in the gym every day, whether that's, lifting, doing cardio, or stretching. Like we're building that atomic habit just wired in so it feels bad when you don't do it. So that someone comes out the other end and they're like, all right, cool. I don't know why, I just have to go.
Yeah, I just have to, got to get something in.
Got to get something. And then, you're eating healthy. There's a ton of psychoeducation. So that's part of that last phase, that retrain phase. We're retraining your atomic habits and getting you to a place where when you walk out that door for the final time, you're ready to just go and just kick ass, man.
Right. Back to the way you were, which is maybe even a better version of yourself,
That's what we're trying
Yeah,
for that post traumatic growth, man. It's a
that's too
thing.
that's too cool. And the you talk about nutrition, and you mentioned athletic greens, but do you use a bunch of different stuff, or do you kind of stick with that? And don't give away your proprietary secrets or anything, but ultimately for people that may not be eligible or can't get up to you, they can work on those good habits. They can work on their nutrition, so what do you got for them?
Yeah, I mean, th personally, this is just what I use is athletic greens. Um, there's always the strategy of, going for a an omega rich diet. That's something we're integrating as well. We haven't quite got there, but getting your fish oils in, getting those omegas, because it's what your brain runs on. It's a fatty acid that helps with cognition. So there's a ton of research on that. I would point people in the direction of Mark Gordon, Dr. Mark Gordon. He's been on Rogan a couple times. Warrior Angel Foundation is one of the nonprofits he set up, and those guys are a great resource if you want to find out more and get hooked up with them. They can help people around the country.
Oh man, it sounds like they need to partner with you guys.
Hey, I'll take it. We're down. We're down to partner with anybody. I
Heck
love
yeah.
Mark.
Yeah, it would be too cool. I mean, you're creating an ecosystem where you guys maybe you're either the hub or you're one of the spokes, but ultimately people come to you for care and it's holistic in nature, yet it's not just pharmacology, it's a lot of other stuff too. So I think that's super cool. Are you guys still doing like deprivation chambers and stuff like that, or?
So we don't have any sensory depth chambers on campus right now. It's something that I really want to implement, but we just started this program, so we got the contract in August. So I came on board in August, and it's just been building this baby from scratch.
Wow.
Um, and it's been really good, man. We're seeing amazing results already.
So
But
in
yeah,
under 6 months, you guys are standing up a program. So talk to me a little bit. How is that working with the VA? They don't usually work at that speed. Like, what have you guys done different, or what are the VA doing different? What's the evolution here?
yeah, so we're licensed as a residential treatment center. And residential treatment centers typically bill insurance through uh, through a facility code. So in outpatient land, you're billing by the procedure, which I've tried to work with the VA in our outpatient facilities, and hasn't been great. They're just when the VA sends you someone from outpatient treatment, they will define which CPT codes you're allowed to treat with. Um, with the residential treatment center, you're doing so much, and there's no way to bill for all of it without just creating a quite literal tsunami of paperwork that'll just swallow them whole. So you bill through that one facility code, and under that you provide your program. So that's how we do it. That's how a lot of other places that are doing great things bill. So that's how we make that happen.
So if I'm a veteran and I'm listening to you and I'm like, man, I need some of that, right? What do they need to do on their end tactically to get to you for that assistance?
Yeah. So first, a couple of like disclaimers slash disqualifiers. So we are a global war on terror kind of. That's the patient population that we serve. So we're looking anywhere from age 22 to, on the upper limits, 45 to 47. um, and we are again within the tri-west network, so that's, I think, western side of the United States. So it's the eastern border of Montana. Just draw a line straight down to Texas and west. So I'm going to try to rattle these off. Washington, Oregon, Idaho, Montana, Wyoming, Colorado, Utah, California, Arizona, New Mexico, and Texas. I don't think I missed anything. So if you have a home VA within those states, you can get a referral to our program. How do you get a referral to our program? Well, we are in the VA's health share referral management system. It's how doctors within the VA send referrals to community care. So it's literally you go to your doc or your mental health provider at the VA and you give them our NPI number. That's our business's facilitation number. So the name of you give them that number and they put in the referral. That's as easy as it is. So I'll give you the NPI number, and I'm sure we can put this NPI number in the comment section as well as the website. So the NPI number is 100308665 and I'm sure you'll have it in the comments. So
yeah, 10030866653.
Yes, sir. Got it.
Do they also go by the name, the Patriot PowerUp?
So it's under Intercept. So Intercept's been around for 20 plus years, but does youth and adolescent inpatient intensive programs. So deal with a lot of really high acuity cases. They've been helping kids for decades, and got this contract through the VA because in the Pacific Northwest, in the Spokane Coeur d'Alene area, there's really no resources for mental health primary inpatient. So we applied for and got the contract through the VA. That's why this place is where it is. And then, built it on the back of what Intercept. So I guess we didn't build it from scratch. We did kind of build it from scratch, but there's an existing inpatient treatment center that we built this program alongside.
Okay, very cool. Well, it's refining, right? You're adding to all those great words to make something better.
Mm-hmm.
That is too cool. And I'm glad you shared the MPI number and the name that it's under, because I think you're going to have folks that are going to be super interested in getting this. Is there anything in the Tri-East like that you're aware of?
Not really. So it's our plan to expand this program as fast as we possibly can. Just get it on the East Coast so people have access. That's one of my within the next year or two, my big priorities. But you got to start somewhere. And I know there's a lot of places where people can go. They can get TMS, they can get hyperbaric, especially through nonprofit partners like America's Mighty Warriors, the 22 Project. There's a lot of great nonprofits doing a lot of great things, and there are resources out there for guys to get help on the East Coast. But right now, we don't have the contract for those yet. It's gonna come though, man. It's just a matter of getting more people into this program, collecting the data,
right,
and showing this empirical data to the VA. Like, hey, we can fix these guys.
Right.
They're not coming to the ER anymore. Like, they went from gun in their mouth to getting a job.
Right. Man,
and now they're killing it.
DL needs to get online with this as well for the grants. I mean, you talk about fixing unemployment for veterans. You talk about, not being a drain necessarily on other medical resources. And when you just keep shotgun blasting everything, you're not fixing it. You're just expending resources. So I love the fact that you guys are really committed to putting somebody back on the path, but it's the humanistic side of thing. We'd rather throw money at something, rather than have to send a letter to somebody's family, right? I would much rather the resources get expended than somebody take their life or hurt themselves in some way. But I think it's super cool.
Yeah, man. For relatively low cost, and this is about saving lives first, 100%. but we can also save the VA money.
Right.
If you treat the root cause of the issue, they no longer have to seek care for the problem.
That's right.
So they can, get access to amazing care, best in class. And I'm, tooting our horn a little bit, but we've been developing this model for years,
Yeah.
and it works. And then once they're fixed, once they're feeling better, they're far less likely to access those, emergency care resources. Just look at the cost of going to the ER. I can't imagine. I don't have numbers to back this up. This is me off the top of my head, but I can't imagine that a hospital is spending less than 50 grand a visit for someone coming to the ER.
Yeah.
Like, and if there's testing that's involved with that, but just it's even more. But like, just from a manpower perspective, you're talking about a significant expenditure every time someone's in a mental health crisis.
Right. No, you're right. Yeah. And they're putting other people at danger. And, it just, it's a really good program when you talk about just the comprehensiveness. And you said it was a 45-day program.
Yeah. So, yep.
Can you do do you have to spend the whole 45 days there? Is there I don't know. I guess what I'm trying to see is what the commitment on the veteran side. Obviously they're going to be committed, but I didn't know if there's a more of an outpatient. Hey, I'm going to come there. I'm going to do a couple things and I'm feeling great. Let me move on back to my job or whatever else.
Yeah. So this program's, designed to be an inpatient. So you're staying there the whole time. It's not a hard 45 days either. We say 45 days to set expectation. That's if you stay there for the full 45, you're going to get the most out of it that we can offer. If you need to stay longer, we can absolutely do that. If you're feeling better and you don't need to take that 45 days, like I had a guy who's discharging at day 38. He's just kicking ass, feeling a ton better, and he's like, hey, I'm ready to go. I'm like, absolutely. If you feel that you're ready to to step back into your life and take it by the horns, absolutely. As long as the medical side of the house, which we are assessing, daily. So you're seeing that psychiatrist weekly, if not more than that. You're seeing the therapist daily. As our medical team deems, it's appropriate, people can get released a lot faster than that.
Right. You've hit the graduation criteria essentially. It's like,
But we see those scores, that we're, logging every day precipitously drop. Like, all right, cool. And then drop and stay down. Okay, cool. You're showing the signs of someone who's, ready to step out of the program and go conquer the world. And that's what we're all about.
too cool, man. As we wrap this up, what other details do you want to provide the listeners?
Yeah. So, you can find more information at patriotpowerup.com. If you're a vet who's interested in the program and you're in one of the states that we mentioned, feel free to email me. I would love to take some time and explain it more to you, answer any questions you've got. My email will be below. It's speterson@altiorhealthcare.com. And yeah, again, if you're a vet who's interested, please reach out. There's no need to suffer anymore. Like, we can actually help, and we can help in a way so that you don't need to keep coming back, to the medical system to get treatment. Like, it's about getting that underlying cause rooted out. And we've set up a system that I can confidently say is doing that.
Wow, man. I'm super happy you came on the show. Obviously, another one of my favorite episodes. Just in the sheer realness that there's true people hurting, and you're actually putting them on a path to a clean bill of health, back to functioning the way they want to function. I think it's yeoman's work for sure.
Oh, thanks. Oh, and another thing to mention, like, one of the things that I wanted to make sure we did with this program is provide a VIP experience. So everyone gets their own room. Like, you're staying in a newly refurbished house in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. If you've never been there, it's super pretty. It's by a very scenic lake in the woods in Idaho. So you're in a really scenic spot in a VIP like experience that's really meant to make you feel like you're in a place that you can get better. Too often we see, like, I'll go tour places that they're like, yeah, we're a psychiatric facility. And I was like, nah, you're a prison without shoelaces. Like, that bed's bolted to the floor, son.
Yeah.
Nobody, people don't come here to get better. You just make sure they don't kill themselves.
Right. I'm on edge just walking around here.
Dude, yeah, absolutely. And that is the precise opposite of what we're doing at Patriot PowerUp. Like you're in a spot where you feel like you can actually get better.
Yeah. Well, and I like your other company, the Mind Spa, that kind of sets that stage. You're in a spa. Like, I mean,
Yep.
I know we're all A-type dudes around here and probably wouldn't, use that terminology, but I think, you guys are creating a mental lodge where you get to truly relax, but then get medical professional help that's graded, it's on a grade scale. Like the quantification, the qualification side of things is what I think you guys are making you special. It's like, it's putting the two things together.
Yeah. And we've got an Xbox in every house too. So, the play, the need for play and for fun is not lost on us.
Yeah.
Like this, it's overarching, and it is so important. The set and setting are not just terms to be used for psychedelic medicine. Set and settings are terms we should use for all of medicine. How does that environment feel? How does that impact our perception? Because we know that our perception impacts everything about our experience, including our ability to heal.
Yeah. Wow. I agree. That's too cool. Well, thanks again, Sam. I can't wait to see episode 3.
Yeah. Well, hey, I've got some stuff coming down the pipe.
All right. We'll see you again. I appreciate the time.
Yeah. Thanks, Jeremy. Always a pleasure to come on the podcast, and you guys are doing great work too. I love the company, and everything you're doing to help vets as well.
Thank you for tuning in and spending a bit of time with us at the Military Transition Academy, powered by Vets to PM. If we piqued your interest, but you want more details, please head over to the website vetstopm.com and see if we can help prepare you for a better tomorrow or a future meaningful and lucrative career.